Crazy details have been revealed about Trey Lance making the final start for the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18 against the Washington Commanders, and everyone is talking about this. In a week where there's so much drama around the NFL, the Cowboys are again at the center of attention. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Cowboys Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Cowboys Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, and we got some crazy details that are coming out of Dallas Cowboys camp because the truth is the drama just never stops with this franchise. They're 7-9. They're firmly out of a playoff spot. They have been for a couple of weeks now, and frankly, there's nothing to play for here. There's pride, and guys are playing for new contracts. I understand all of that, but in terms of team success and how the rest of the season looks, there's nothing to play for, which is why the Dallas Cowboys are turning to Trey Lance, which we'll break down on this episode of Cowboys Digest. But before we do that, just make sure to hit that subscribe button because a large percentage of you who are watching these videos aren't subbed to the channel. So it'd mean the world to me if you guys go ahead and hit that sub button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. So let's get into the news here. Trey Lance will start this week as he tries to showcase for NFL teams that he is someone worth taking a chance on in the offseason. Now, if we all remember correctly, and I'm sure all of you loyal Dallas Cowboy fans do, Trey Lance was acquired in exchange for a fourth-round pick. And in that fourth round, you saw guys like Braylon Allen get selected, the more than capable backup running back for the New York Jets. There were a ton of names out there that the Cowboys could have used in those spots. Instead, they trade that fourth for Trey Lance, who was barely even on the active roster when Dak Prescott was healthy. He was actually the emergency quarterback, so they couldn't even use him in some sets and take advantage of the athleticism that he brings to the table. So I think it's safe to say that this trade has been a total disaster. Now, it's not like they traded away a second or third round pick or even a first round pick for him, but still, a fourth round pick in the NFL is pretty steep because those guys usually come in and have an immediate impact if you select the right person at that spot. So it's unfortunate that it went down the way it did, and Trey Lance, we thought that they were going to go to him after Dak Prescott was out. I mean, the season looked all but done and dusted at that point of the year, and they still decided to go with Cooper Rush. So this is going to be an opportunity for Trey Lance to showcase himself for the other teams around the National Football League. I don't think he's showcasing anything to the Cowboys. I expect him to leave for nothing at the end of the year, and I truly think that is the most likely scenario. Unless they decide to bring Lance back as the backup, I can't see that happening, but it might. It might happen, but man, just a disappointing trade overall from a Cowboy fan perspective. I mean, it never was going to work out with Dak Prescott in the fold, but he went down and it seemed like an opportunity. But the fact that they didn't even turn to Lance when they were eliminated from the playoffs, that just shows you how little confidence they actually have in him. And you got to give Cooper Rush credit. But the real reason and the crazy details why Lance may actually be starting, it's not for him to be showcased. It's not for the Dallas Cowboys to bring him back. It's so they can save $500,000 and not pay Cooper Rush. So Cooper Rush will have to play 68 out of 68 snaps on Sunday. He'll basically have to play the whole game if he wants to get that $500,000 incentive, which he's clearly not going to get because Trey Lance is going to be starting. So whether Trey Lance is in there for a few plays to start the game and then they turn it over to Cooper Rush remains to be seen. But numbers like these shows that it's highly unlikely that Cooper Rush is going to get that bonus, and they turned to him because he gave them the best chance to win. And ultimately, I agree with that. I just wanted to see Trey Lance and see if he can progress at all in the final few games of the season, but we didn't get the opportunity to see that. Now we're going to get the opportunity to see Trey Lance in Week 18 against the Commanders, and it's probably going to go how we all expect it to go. A lot of mistakes, a lack of poise in the pocket, and we're just going to see a different version of the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18 than we've seen in the past few weeks. We're going to see less quick throws. We're going to see less completions. And overall, probably a worse offensive output, especially with CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be out for that game as well. So it's just an unfortunate situation for Cooper Rush, and the fact that they're trying to save the $500,000 incentive. Like, I get it from a business perspective, but don't preach to the fan base that you want to win, even when you're out of the playoff race, that you want to try to build for next year and build a culture, but then you go ahead and do something like this. You signified when Dak went down that Cooper Rush was your guy. Fine. The fan base wasn't happy about it, but that is the decision you made. Now you're backtracking on that decision. You're starting Trey Lance, a guy who's got one foot out the door already, in an opportunity for him to showcase himself for the other teams around the league, and it has no benefit to you. The only benefit it has is to save this $500,000 incentive that you would have been paying out to Cooper Rush. So I gave my thoughts on this. Let's look at RJ Ochoa, a guy whose work I use a lot, so go check him out on X. One of the best and most neutral Cowboy reporters out there on X, so go check him out. It has long made sense for the Cowboys to see what they have in Trey Lance. We all agree there. Exactly what I've been saying. Nobody is talking out of both sides of their mouth with this. Turning to Trey in Week 18 after defiantly not doing so and denying Cooper Rush's incentive is just about the worst way possible to go about it. Finally doing this. Amazing how this organization insists on making everyone think less of them. And again, yeah, backup quarterbacks and fringe players are looking at this and saying, well, why would I want to play for an organization like this? And you could make the argument that any team would probably operate this way, but any team that was in this situation would have probably turned to Trey Lance right away and not even leave this up for debate, not even leave it with any doubt that that Cooper Rush would be able to get his incentive. So it's just frustrating from an outside perspective that the Cowboys, even though they're 7-9 and have had such a crappy season, keep making the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Like, why are we not talking about the Sunday Night Football matchup that we're about to see between the Lions and the Vikings? It's going to be the game of the year. I can't wait for this. But now we have to digest these little tidbits of news that are coming out about the Cowboys and screwing around with Cooper Rush's money. I get it. It's a business. I don't feel bad for the guy because he's not making an extra $500,000, but it just, from an optics perspective, it looks really bad, the fact that you're doing this when you could have just easily turned it over to Trey Lance and stopped feeding this delusional narrative to the Cowboy fans that you were going to make the playoffs with Cooper Rush. It was never going to happen. We all knew that. I mean, they started to play a lot better towards the end of the year, but they weren't good enough, especially with a backup quarterback under center. So why are you lying to the fan base saying you're going to try your best in every game, try to win in every game, instead of just turning it over to a guy that you traded a fourth-round pick for, who we have barely seen? We've barely seen him. We've seen him in preseason action. It's been very up and down, to say the least. We've seen him in very limited snaps in regular season action this year. But, don't you owe it to the fan base after giving up a fourth-round pick for a top prospect quarterback just to put him out there, just to see what you have? I mean, he must have been really bad in practice to not even get a look at that. So it's interesting. Let me know in the comments down below. Does it shock you that the Cowboys are going with Trey Lance in Week 18 against the Commanders? Or, in my opinion, I think it's on brand. But let me know. Does it shock you, or is it on brand for the Cowboys? And I'll see you all tomorrow.